Right now, I have to stop saying.
Boy, I never get tired of that new
What
drop.
was it?
This is from last week's Mark Janko show.
Right now, I have to stop saying. Are we live right now?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
That's literally how you started the Janko show.
Yeah, Luds, that was when I gave you like 8 warnings that we were going live.
You've never given
and
me
then you
8. Let's be
immediately
honest.
swore
Yeah.
and then claimed I gave you no warnings. That's what that's from.
You're just trying to get me kicked off. Right now, I have to stop saying.
I love it.
That's actually exactly what Lud said in the video that I got right after Connor McDavid scored the goal.
Yes.
Owen gave an actual take, and Lud's just swore at me multiple times.
He was hoping that if he swore enough, you couldn't use it.
Oh, I can use it. It will be
Yeah,
put to
see,
use.
nice try. He tried. Well, there we have it. We were hopeful. They were close. But just like in 2010 in Vancouver in the gold medal game, somebody with a 7 on their back scored for Canada to win it in overtime. Let's talk about it. DLS Four Nations Championship Podcast postgame show from the Stars crew starts right now.
Get it ready, boys.
Oh, Canada, indeed. They found a way again as they beat the United States. Let's grab our notes here. This is the DLS.
Why was number 63 in there? Why is Brad Marchand?
Why
in
do
there?
you think?
He didn't even do anything.
Why do you think? It was in Boston. Who's our producer?
Surprised
I'm not
Swayman
sure.
wasn't in the U.S. one.
Well, I
Well,
think Jordan Binnington gets the last laugh of that being in Boston and hurting my feelings this evening.
that's
So,
true. It would have been
True.
it would have been
Truth.
McAvoy if he didn't have a shoulder infection. We'll get to that later
True.
too.
I would have put Swayman on there too, even if Canada won.
He was just all the Bruins. This is the DLS Dallas Stars postgame show. It sounds weird because we're not doing Dallas Stars primary talk, although we did get a Dallas Stars player in the game, and it wasn't Jake Ottinger. Craig Ludwig, live from parts unknown, Sam Nestler.
Squirrel.
Our producer, John Anderson, who has really satisfied me just by playing the up quote for Sam. I'm Owen Newkirk.
Squirrel.
Thanks for joining us tonight. A late one because of overtime. Lud's first instant reaction as the U.S. comes so close to taking this Four Nations tournament, but close isn't enough.
I think there should be a game 3. I mean, U.S. wins the first one, Canada wins the second one. It just seems like there should be a game 3.
You know, you hate soccer as much
hate
as I like
losing.
it, but the U.S. won. If you combine the two, soccer does that. They'll do an aggregate. U.S. won by 1 goal.
Aggregate, whatever that is, then we should be doing an aggregate.
It means add the goals together,
oh,
right?
I thought it
So
meant another
they got
game.
5. Canada got 4.
I don't know. What I do
Champions.
know is you don't leave the best player on the planet all alone in the slot. I mean, got to
For a
have that
week.
guy, huh?
For
Hey,
a
Sam?
week. He could have dusted it off 5 or 6 more times before he shot that.
Yep. You know what though? The one thing that I would say about this tournament, or this whatever we're calling this thing, is that when you put a lot of the best players on the planet in a game together, a lot of those guys that we see a lot don't stand out that much. I mean, because everybody else is kind of at the same, the level. Because a lot of this game, we're like, have you seen number 97 at all? Or where have you seen him? And other times it's, where do you see this guy? And I think it's just that they all kind of even each other out. But I mean, it was a great event. I think it was awesome for hockey here in the States. I think it got on the map for people that didn't know about it. It was hard to not know about it because it was all over the place.
Sam, you were filling your Twitter feed with Mighty Ducks references. Not Anaheim, but the Disney movie. What's your instant reaction to this and the tournament overall?
Yeah, I was waiting for the shootout. I actually didn't realize until today that the overtime rules were different for this game, which is amazing because that would have been miserable if that had gone 3-on-3 or in a shootout. But
I would have
watched
boycotted the
D2
postgame
today.
show if it was a shootout.
Yeah, it would have been brutal, right? But that's like the Olympics. That's what happens. So I like the rule, but I think the Four Nations, just people were talking about D2 Mighty Ducks, Miracle, all these movies, and the motivation and what it meant to this team, this country, and Lud said it perfectly. It blew away expectations for the NHL, for the players. I don't think anybody really realized how big this was going to be, and it had millions and millions of people tuned in on the edge of their seats, standing up, chanting all game. This was just an amazing tournament and so much fun. But I think the big takeaway from this tournament for me, for the U.S., is they missed a few of their guys. They're more depth. I put depth in quotes because nobody on this team is really depth, but the Gensels and the Brady Tkachuks and those guys carried this team, and we didn't see the Matthews and Eichel domination and those superstars. And I think that's what made the difference in the end.
Hey, John, is your chat accurate, or are you just stirring it up? Is that something we can promote? Or is that a hopeful whim?
Are you referring to this comment right here?
Yes, that one.
No, I'm attempting to make money for the business.
Well, I understand that, but
we're in.
The motivation of us getting the day off tomorrow.
Let me find an ATM machine.
Done.
Lutz will pay it himself.
Who is this 999,000 or whatever it is super chat from a Wisconsin Fighting Sioux? Oh, very generous of you. All right. Look, we're not going to do the exact same thing we do for the Stars post games.
Hold on, Owen. Can you do a drum roll for me?
Oh,
do a drum roll.
You want the
everyone do a drum roll right now?
Table roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from whatever island in Hawaii.
No way!
Oh no!
How about that?
Yes.
He's even got a Penguins Hawaiian shirt on right now.
Oh,
that's amazing.
No.
What is it, like 5:30, 6 o'clock there?
Sean, do you have an answer for us?
It's Pokemon again.
It's 6:45, and actually, it's 6:45.
Damn it, I got the Pokemon wrong another time. But doesn't that look like a penguin on there, Lutz?
Oh, and he's rubbing it in with a beer now too.
That would be Snorlax, Owen.
That's Snorlax. I knew that one.
John, bring me that bottle of Fireball over here.
Where is it?
Right in front of you.
Hold on. Let's start with the little Sean story time. So, Sean, you were the one that actually informed our group. He's on vacation in Hawaii, which is why he hasn't been on the show all week, and yet here he is tonight.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
You informed the group from where were you that Thomas Harley was playing tonight for Team Canada?
Oh, I was on a boat. I was looking at Wales, and I got a text that Harley was going to play, and instead of opening Twitter, I just texted you guys. So I hope someone did something with that. I don't know, but that's good.
By the way, the people in the chat are all over your Pokemon shirt. They love it, and they're making fun of me again for having no idea about it all. But they do want to know why you're smiling because we lost.
Because he's chugging a beer every time.
Because he's in Hawaii,
he's
drinking a beer.
I'm having a good time. This is the first time I learned that the television worked in the hotel. I had no idea if the television worked in the hotel, so I had to turn that on to figure out to watch the game. So but that was a great hockey game. I mean, it was obviously the ending was disappointing and everything like that, but I thought this tournament was going to suck. I mean, I honestly, I knew it would be fun for us to have this and everything like that, but I thought this was going to be very much a half-baked thing. I thought it was going to be something where it'd be cool, a sideshow, and it turned into an amazing tournament. The championship game went from something where I'm like, if it's on, I'll watch it, to something organize. I had to set time to go watch it and find time to watch it today. So it was a great tournament, great ending to a great tournament. Obviously, the who won or lost was not great for us on this show, but the hockey was amazing, and I was wrong about what I thought this tournament was going to be. So,
Luddy, I just looked it up. 4-hour time difference.
That's why I said it was 6 o'clock or something.
6:46 in Hawaiian Standard Time.
I know my time.
You're
nice.
good. You're sharp.
So what?
Sun's still there.
Everywhere.
Little sunset.
Oh, now we're rubbing it in with the palm trees.
Sean, is that what
That's pretty.
they call the ocean view?
that is the view from my hotel balcony. So
Nice. See
that
his
is,
balcony?
What is that, a La Quinta you're staying at?
That looks like the only painting that I have in my apartment.
All right. So our
Thanks,
GM
Scott.
has joined
Appreciate
the
it.
chat, and he said that
Anything about a day off?
Hold
or-
on, we're going to get to that. He said we need the Sean/Bobby Pokemon show.
I'm in for that. I can do it, Bobby.
Maybe you can do it in studio when you're in town for the U18 tournament, and you guys can do a break-off Pokemon.
Yeah, set aside a day for that. I'm sure I could tell the folks from Elite Prospects that I have more important things to do than watching U18 hockey, and I think that's completely fair. So,
Okay, now to the other reason I brought up that GM Ben is in the chat. Ben, we need to make a deal. Double overtime. Well, no, it didn't make a double.
Why are we making a deal now?
Because he's listening.
The game's over. On.
Look, the deal. It's overtime. We went
Gonna
late.
make a bet with him.
If we get to $1,000 in super chats on our post game tonight, we get the day off from our show tomorrow. Answer in the chat, Ben. So, all right, let's talk about the game as we wait
I'd be reckless.
in anticipation of Ben's response. That was a heck of a tournament overall. We'll talk about the game specifically as well, which was great, but just overall, did anybody of the four of you, I'll go Luds and then right around the room, did any of you guys expect it to be this competitive, this high quality of a hockey tournament?
I would say, I think, because of everybody that was competing. I mean, they got some of the best hockey players in the world. But like I said, I wish that there was a way to have everybody else involved in it, but that's not possible, I guess, right now. Can I ask Sean a question right now, or
go right ahead?
Sean, what does this do to Connor Hellebuyck? Does this add to the, you know where I'm going with this thing? Does it add to that or not?
Yeah, I mean, it especially I think with the way overtime played out because of how Jordan Binnington played at the other end, right? Where Binnington, the book on him is he may let up that bad goal, he may have a soft one, but he's going to show up in the biggest moments. And Luds, you have multiple. You have 2 Stanley Cup rings because you played with 2 goalies who knew how to show up in the biggest moment. And no matter what you think about Jordan Binnington's overall play and everything like that throughout the season, what he did in overtime compared to Hellebuyck's tournament, where Hellebuyck was good. Let's not take anything away from the overall tournament, but when the other guy's making 3 grade A stops like that, you need one from. And I know they left the best player in the world wide open in the slot for way too long. I know that. That's also Binnington was making more difficult saves at the other end. So this is definitely, from the Hellebuyck perspective, it kind of goes into a little bit more of the when things and the pressure gets turned up is the tightest, can he deliver? And this only adds to that just because of the side-by-side of who he was playing against, how someone else handled things.
I do want to go to the general manager of Canada because, he's from a school that was groomed by Bob Gainey and guys like that. I just wonder if he came into this tournament saying, Jordan, we're going to start with him. And if it comes down to, it's more than likely going to come down to Canada versus the United States. If Army is thinking of that, I think Armstrong is one of the best GMs in the league and knows players. And if we get to this game and they're going to have their guy and we're going to have our guy has a ring and our guy has shown that he can do it, even though it was 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, nobody else played in the net for Canada. And so I'm just wondering if Army had that kind of a hammer at the top to be able to say, because Binnington, he did let in a couple soft goals at times.
He came into this game having given up 8 goals and a save percentage of .892 in 3 starts.
But when you know you're going to get to that game, do you want to have a Stanley Cup winner versus a guy that hasn't been able to win? Well, that's the
USA-Canada comparison. How about John Cooper making the choice to go with Binnington? Does Doug Armstrong have a say in that? Because Aiden Hill also has a Stanley Cup to his credit, and his coach is on that coaching staff in Bruce Cassidy. But look, Aiden Hill was good in that Stanley Cup run, but I thought Binnington was the reason why the St. Louis Blues even got to the playoffs, let alone won the Stanley Cup that year.
Yeah, and I would also say, again, Sean will know better, all 3 of you guys will. Like, it just seems when Binnington is on, Binnington is on. And when he can keep his cool, he loses his temper sometimes, and then he kind of falls off track. But when he can get his game together in, stretches, he's a really good goalie yet. Sam, you?
Yeah, no, I agree. He's one of those guys where, like you guys mentioned, the soft goals. He had them. He had a couple of them that you look and you're, oh man, why is he starting again? But guess what he did? He got Canada to the championship game and he won them the championship game. Period. It doesn't matter that he had a couple soft goals and Canada didn't beat US in the first game. None of that mattered. He did enough to get them there, and he did more than enough to win it for him. And that's what you just talked about, Luds. That's the Belfours and the legends that you hear of. No matter what his regular season stats look like, no matter what his overall career looks like, he wins in the biggest moments. That's what he's done.
Luds, were you, was it 93? There's the Patrick Waugh story, and I can't remember which, he's got so many cups, so I can't remember which year it was, but there's the Patrick Waugh story where he went into the locker room, he had given up a goal that he deemed not good enough, and he said, there's the famous story where he said, no more getting past me. And I can't remember if that was 93 with you guys or if that was, maybe it was 96 with Colorado, but
he was with Colorado, I think. I think when he said he's not giving up anymore.
Yeah.
I heard the story too, yeah.
Yeah, but like that's the type of thing where you talk about with Binnington, right? I'm not sure if he says that to that team, but that's the thing where for that coaching staff, for those players, they know going into overtime that's the attitude they're getting in back of them. And I think that's just huge in the way that they played. Just you could see that.
Let's talk a lot more about it next here on the DLS Dallas Stars Four Nations postgame show. And I should have given Sean a read.
I'm going to bounce, actually. So I'm going to cut off an ad read, and I'm going to go enjoy my vacation. But later, guys.
Thanks for stopping by.
Get some sun, eh?
Okay. Did he just click off just like that?
Apparently.
The old Vegas exit. He's out.
The screen's not even fixed yet. It's still there.
Oh, it'd be nice to John. He's trying
I'll
to
do that during the break.
No, I'm saying because he cut out so quickly.
Ad break.
He didn't have
Roll
time
it.
to do it.
Oh, it's me because I have to do both because I messed up the ads earlier and thought that this was our fourth show of the week, not our second, because it's Thursday, for goodness sakes. Well, let's talk about Game Time. Game Time is the only place you need to go to get your tickets for your premier sporting events, concerts, theater, comedy shows. It's the best. You can go on their website, gametime.co, or most easiest thing to do, download the app. It has a special feature called Game Time Picks. Makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. You can see on the side of the screen how some of the seat views virtually show you what tickets are available, what price point, where in the stadium, so that you're never surprised if it's your first time going to a venue. You know what you're getting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now it's time for us to talk about Shady Rays, one of my other favorites. Well, get ready for whatever season is ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Hundreds of options to choose from. You can maybe even find your favorite team's color. They have wonderful options, whether you like the big, thick frames, the thin aviators, or in Ludz's case, no sunglasses at all. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right, we lost Sean. We didn't know we were getting Sean. So let's talk about this game a little bit. Is there anything in particular, Luds, that you want to start with? We don't have to go chronologically like we usually do. We can go all over the place, or we can start at the beginning.
Well, Brady Tkachuk, for me, I think he was by far the most polarizing player, not in the whole event maybe, but for sure in these games. I thought it was kind of I don't want to say a coming out party, but it's too bad that Matthew couldn't, his brother, continue to play. But I think together, they had that 1-2 punch, that Batman Robin kind of thing. But I thought Brady Tkachuk, the way that he played and goes to the front and finishes his checks, and I think it was somebody that every time he was on the ice, guys wearing the red jerseys were always looking around. He had an effect on the game in all different ways.
Both on Saturday and tonight, he had a couple of hits on Drew Doughty on the end boards on the forecheck where he just freight trained a big, strong, physical defenseman who was trying to make a play on the puck. Credit to Doughty for taking the hit to make the play, but boy, that adds up when you have a guy like Tkachuk just steamrolling you like that.
And I think both times, if I remember the first one also, he lifted him off his feet
both feet.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Drew is a big boy, like you said. But he did it legally. You know, it wasn't charging or it wasn't cross-checking or, you know, from behind and all that kind of stuff. And he plays the same way. He plays like he plays in front of the net all over the ice. I mean, the goal that he scored tonight, it was something very similar to that. And you know, he comes down to the front of the net. We got to look at it here if you're watching. And to me, and both players, you know, from Canada are both staring the wrong direction. But credit to Tkachuk, just prior to this, he doesn't come down and get himself into that area of the ice. He kind of stays out a little bit. He was just above the hash mark area, and he kind of read it well. Matthews comes around. It was a fortunate play by Matthews where he comes around. He tries to wrap it here on Binnington, but he loses the puck. But Tkachuk is coming downhill, and he comes in and he times it right, and the puck comes out there. But as you can see, both players in the red jerseys are just staring at him. They don't even see where Tkachuk is, but he finds that quiet little area right there. And that's where he always is, though. If you're playing against a guy like that, you have to position yourself the right way, because when he's on the ice and you're in the offensive zone, at some point he's going to be standing in front of your goaltender. I mean, he's going to be in that area of the ice. And that was one of the examples where when he plays like that, he's just so effective, and he just doesn't get out-willed in those areas of the ice. You know, he's going to win the wars and he's going to win the battles. And so Ottawa's very lucky to have that player on their team.
Sam, on the flip side, Luddy kind of intimated this, but this is a real thing of Matthew Tkachuk's decision to try to play tonight. Now, look, a lot of times in hockey, we sort of heroically idolize players for playing through pain, gutting it out, and being quote-unquote hockey players. But in this instance, it reminded me of a couple years ago when we actually saw this in the Amazon series, right, where he was trying to play and he couldn't. He physically just couldn't get through it. He was in so much pain, and he's trying his best to be available. And at some point, somebody, like, I get it. It's the final. It's USA Canada. You saw what the Tkachuks did against the Canadians. You saw what they did specifically against Finland, where they were just running riot over the Finns. Is it a bit selfish of Matthew Tkachuk to play in a game where he's clearly hurt? Maybe he thinks that he can get through it, but you have a healthy Kyle Connor. Now, he's a completely different style player, but he's at least healthy.
Yeah, I got to imagine that Matthew Tkachuk believed he could play that full game pretty healthily, not 100%. But the reason I think that is because we've seen, you just mentioned it, I mean, I think he was playing with a broken sternum in the Stanley Cup final either last year or 2 years ago, and still putting up tons of game-winning goals.
I think it was against Vegas, guy, right?
Yeah, so that, I mean,
2 years ago.
That because when they ran out of steam. I mean, that's the guy that Lud said it's a bummer that he didn't play, and it's the game he scores in. This is the game Matthew Tkachuk makes an impact in, right? These are the moments that he scores that overtime winner. He makes that big hit to open up a play. So they missed him out there. But I get what you're saying. It's funny you asked that, because before, when you were asking if we expected this of the tournament, I didn't at all. And that's because Pietrangelo, I think, was the first one to pull out of injury. And then we started hearing rumors of guys that were maybe dealing with something and we're not going to go. And I thought this was going to be, as Sean called it, kind of half in, half out. Some guys were going to opt to just not go because it wasn't worth it and they wanted to focus on the season. And we didn't get that at all. We basically got everybody going, even if they were injured at the time, and then playing even if they were injured in the moment, like the Tkachuks and other players like that. So I get it. I'm sure the Florida Panthers are very not excited about Matthew Tkachuk's decision to do that, especially if it's lower body, groin type things that we, believe it might be.
What the TV guys were saying.
Yeah, it just puts him in a bad spot is the way you look at it. And I think I heard it the other day, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, that multiple players have reached out to their teams and said, like, we're going to need a minute when we get back and we're not going to be ready right away. And again, teams, I'm sure, are not loving that situation. So it's kind of a weird in between thing with this tournament where they went all out like it was a Game 7 Stanley Cup final, except the reality is they're playing in a day from now, in Eastern time. So it's going to come quick, and I think we're going to see some guys that are going to miss some games this weekend.
Speaking of TV guys, I just want to say I was very happy tonight when I was sitting downstairs waiting for John to show up since I was early again. I got to see an American hockey player, former hockey player on the ESPN broadcast, because it was always Mess and PK up there, two Canadian guys talking about what Canada should do and stuff like that. And it was Big Walt. It was the Tkachuk's dad, Keith Tkachuk. And even though he was just there for a second, it was nice to have somebody there talking about the United States. I hated that.
Did you notice the difference between the TNT broadcast and the ESPN when they did USA Canada during this tournament as far as who they had on the panel?
Yeah, well, they brought in Tony. I mean, he brought Granado in finally. I mean, it just seemed so lopsided the whole time. And I get it. I mean, they're going to talk about their country's people, but there's always a lot of talk about Canada. But it was nice to see Keith there, and his dad was the same kind of player. You know what I mean? I would say he's probably more like Brady than he is Matthew. Matthew kind of plays in the middle of that. Brady just plows through everything, and that's the way the old man played.
Sam, you brought up an interesting point about the injuries, and Alex Pietrangelo, of course, didn't go. The Canadians were very disappointed because they wanted him to play. He's a huge player for them. Worked out pretty well for Thomas Harley, which we can get to in a minute. But on the flip side for the U.S., they would have loved to have Quinn Hughes. He had to bow out. I would have loved to see both of those players playing in this tournament, but I'd rather have guys, and both teams are deep enough now.
And McAvoy.
And McAvoy got hurt during the tournament and probably played hurt going into it. And we should probably talk about McAvoy in our next segment or now or whenever. Brutal. But to me, I would rather especially because the U.S. and Canada are so deep. We're not talking about where Finland was sort of stretched because of Heiskanen and Ristolainen getting hurt and not having a lot of NHL defensemen available. There's enough really talented players that didn't get to play, right? So if Tkachuk was really hurt, like we said, Kyle Connor got scratched tonight, although I don't think he had a great tournament. What about Jason Robertson?
I don't like it.
What about Tage Thompson? What about Clayton Keller, right? Same thing goes for, Jake Sanderson showed himself very well in this tournament, the young defenseman from Ottawa, because he was able to play because of the McAvoy injury. And of course, Quinn Hughes not going. And Sanderson was named as his replacement. And he stepped up. So, like you were talking about teams being worried about injuries, I'm almost in a way glad that those guys that did bow out chose to, because others that are good enough and clearly belong got a chance to show their abilities on the top stage.
Absolutely. And I think you put it perfectly with look what they did. And that's what we talked about this tournament. And that's what happens in playoffs. And it's not always the big guys that carry teams in these big moments, right? How many Stanley Cup runs have we seen where Jordan Binnington or someone that wasn't expected to be that guy was that guy? And every replacement that came in looked great. I mean, Kreider scored a goal on his first shift. Harley looked great and completely not out of place and very comfortable playing with the best players in the world. And Sanderson, same thing, comes in and looks great. And it just felt like you just look at, there could be 3 Team USAs and 3 Team Canadas that could play each other. So I get what you're saying. And I agree 100%. I'd hate to see Pietrangelo show up to the tournament thinking he can play and then gets, 2 shifts in and says he can't. And then you're scrambling to try to get people to play. So it's such a deep group. And that's why I'm excited the Olympic roster is a little bit bigger. I'd love to see just let's just bring 2 teams from Canada and the US and have an A and a B team.
Sam, it's funny when we had the assistant general manager, Mark Janko, on here the other day.
God, it was a week ago already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's already been a week.
But I remember him made a comment about Thomas Harley and his confidence level. And he says the one thing that Thomas Harley is not short on is confidence in his ability. Yep. And he stepped right in tonight, or not tonight, the other game too. But he steps right in, and there was no moment that was too big for him. And the one thing he did is he played to his strengths. He was up and he got involved offensively, and He tap danced on the offensive blue line like he normally does. You would think, and the same thing with Sanderson. I mean, you can say it about both of them. But they didn't try to just kind of stay back. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They weren't playing to make mistakes or not playing to make mistakes, which is great. I mean, but I know that a lot of players would go there and you're with all these big names. Thomas is what, 23, 24 now? Sanderson 22.
23.
And you're kind of surrounded by some of these, some of the greatest players on the planet, and you don't want to be making a poor decision at the wrong time. And for Thomas, he stepped right in and played the very same way he did here, and he ultimately created a goal for the U.S. on that,
it's funny you
for
mentioned
Canada
that.
on that first one.
Go ahead and break it down.
And this is the one here. And really, I mean, when what Thomas did here is he gets the puck and he spots MacKinnon down near the goal line, and he makes an immediate pass. But then what he does is he takes off like we see him do. This is kind of what I'm talking about. A lot of young defense, when they would back off here, in case there's a mistake, a bobbled puck, you want to be back. Well, Harley takes off, and what he does is, it's Brady Tkachuk again. Tkachuk sees him take off, and so all of a sudden the coverage is like, oh, wait a second now. Am I supposed to have this guy as their little give and go here? Maybe they're playing man on man. I don't know. I'm just saying. But there are coaches on that bench that play that way.
And coaching the defense, by the way.
Same thing. So anyway, but he opens up a little bit of space here, MacKinnon. He buys him an extra second. MacKinnon sees that there's a bunch of traffic in front of Hellebuyck, and all he does is he just finds a lane. He throws it to the net and ultimately goes in. But if it wasn't for Thomas, with that play right there, that probably doesn't open up like that, and MacKinnon has to get the puck off his stick. And again, MacKinnon was a scoring machine through this short little span.
Let's keep this going. We have lots more to get to, including your super chats and some regular chats. I want to bring up one that Allie just wrote about Harley next year on the DLS Dallas Stars and Four Nations postgame show.
But first, it's Rugged Road. Rugged Road is dedicated creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Our products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique features is its ability to always float upright. Crafted to handle the toughest environments, our coolers are built to last, ensuring they can keep up with any adventure. The coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days. Perfect for a variety of outdoor activities, from fishing and tubing to camping and tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor or sports enthusiast. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head over to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code DLLS for 10% off.
Let's talk about FOCO. Get fitted in the best sports gear around. Hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. You're going to a hockey game, basketball game, show off your love with team-branded friendship bracelets. Boy, that sounds like a Sam thing, doesn't it? Whether it is jackets, Luds' favorite beachwear, or even overalls, although Luds insists they're called bibs where he comes from, there is something for every fan for almost every occasion. In fact, we even have set decorations that FOCO has donated a couple of awesome pieces for our set, so go show them some love. And I'm sure John doesn't have it queued up, but they actually even sell, I believe it isn't FOCO the Stars bathing suits that we were talking a lot on?
The underwear. Oh, wow, I still do. I do.
He does still have it.
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, there we go.
Look at that. They have Dallas Stars branded swim trunks. Check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code DLLS10 for 10% off. All right, let's talk about Harley for one more second, at least here. Allie wrote, because somebody else in the chat before then, it's a Galaga champ, was saying the TV guys kept essing on Harley, using a word that we're not supposed to say on the air. Allie said, why were they essing on Harley? Canadian broadcast was praising him. And I wanted to address that real quick because I get the hunch, Luds, that even though Thomas Harley's not a rookie and he's been in the NHL with Dallas for a couple years now, that the broader coverage isn't as familiar with Thomas Harley, at least on the ESPN crew tonight, than perhaps some of the others. And I think it was coming more from their studio show than it was their broadcast team.
Yeah, like I said, in the first intermission, when Messier and PK were talking, I think what happened was they just kind of shut up really quick. And so there was this awkward space there. And when he says, yeah, Thomas Harley looked like he was having a hard time out there, we'll keep an eye on that. And I was like, well, I didn't see a hard time out there. And then you look at the minutes, and he had played 7 minutes or something like that in the first period. So I don't think that Canada was too worried about him. So, yeah, I think that when you don't know a lot about a player, you just kind of throw stuff up against the wall. And if you don't do your research and you don't know who a player is, you got to watch him and you got to call people and find out he's a very confident player and his strength is this, this, and this. And he, like I said earlier, he played to his strengths, but there was no point in any of the 2 games that Thomas got into that I felt that he was in over his head and there was something out there that he couldn't handle.
Players that played more than Thomas Harley in this game: Cale Makar, Devon Toews, Connor McDavid.
Anybody for U.S. play more than Harley? Are you talking about Canadians?
Yeah, there were.
Talking about Canadians. I was talking about Canadians. Yeah. Sorry, there were 3 or 4 guys that played on the U.S. more than that. But I mean, just looking at that roster, the fact that he plays that many, I thought I kept seeing him, and it felt like he was out there a lot. There you go, third most minutes.
Well, maybe you fell into the trap that Luds did. Was he kept seeing Parayko's 55 and thinking it was Harley out there?
Well, no, that too. I kept seeing 55, and I was like, whoa, they heard. But then there was the other time. There were a couple times, as their broadcast isn't always the best, but there were times out there, and I'm like, oh wait, but it was actually Cale Makar sometimes. Just not a lefty righty kind of thing, just the way that Thomas moves around and Makar moves, which is a compliment.
And they both had an 8 on their back.
Yeah, so. Again, we like Thomas Harley. We like him a lot, but I love the confidence that he had in this event.
Do you guys think? I'll ask both of you. So we'll start with Sam. What do you think this does? We know that Thomas doesn't lack for confidence, right? Doesn't. But this being on the senior men's national team for Canada, not the juniors, which he has played before, but the full big number 1 Team Canada, Hockey Canada roster. It's got to be, I mean, even a guy as confident as Harley still has to maybe take a step because of this experience.
Yeah, it makes him feel good. I don't know, maybe confidence isn't even the right word. Maybe that's not what he gets, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get rolling a little bit. He's been great all season. We saw him explode for the goals he scored last year, a couple of overtime winners, and I think the same week. I wouldn't be surprised to see, especially with Demiro Heiskanen absence, Thomas Harley start putting in a goal every 3 or 4 games here coming off of this, because you just have to believe 100% in your abilities. And Luds, before you broke that play down, I was going to say the exact same thing about Harley. That play when he set up MacKinnon, that's a huge risk play. If that puck gets bobbled, if he loses that, the fact that he's cycling and switching spots with MacKinnon, that could easily be a 2-on-1 or a breakaway the other way. And that the ability, the skating, the confidence, everything you can say. I mean, look where he's going there. He's leaving MacKinnon all by himself back there if that puck gets jacked. So I just think that the sky's the limit for him. And the craziest thing is, you said he was 23, and that shocked me, because for whatever reason, I mean, I feel like we've been talking about Thomas Harley for 10 years in this organization. Whether from elite prospect to, the next guy. Oh, he's here a little bit and then he's back, and that it just feels like he's been here for so long. And the fact that he's 23 years old is just absolutely wild.
Yeah, Sam, I think the next time you talk to Thomas, we tell players a lot, the younger players, that they come from the U18 level and they go to the junior team and they're going to get in a game or two and they're going to come back. And when they come back, I'll always ask them, like, how was it? And a lot of them will say it's easy. It was easier. And the reason that it's easier is now they're playing with players that are a year or 2 older, playing at a different level. They're in the spots where they're supposed to be more often than the same age guys that they're playing with, and it should be easier. But I'm wondering that playing with this group of guys, all of them are great players at this event. I would think that it'd be the same thing, but you have to make your decisions faster because they get into spots and they leave those spots because they're at another level than 600 other players in the NHL sometimes. So now for Thomas, I'm wondering, did he have to adjust to them being there and then being gone? Like, I had to move things a little bit quicker, even quicker than some of my normal guys that I play with on a nightly basis, that all of a sudden the McKinnons and the Crosbys and all them kind of guys and Makars that you're playing with, like the lane is right there. I got to get it to them because they're expecting me to get it to them because they're going to the next spot.
What do you guys?
They're gone, and the U.S. I was just gonna say they're gone on your own team, but then you're also playing against the fastest and heaviest forecheck you've probably ever seen in your career, right? So I'm really curious to ask, since we didn't get anyone, but I mean Harley was the only one who played in the Canada-U.S. game. Ottinger obviously was on the bench, so I'm curious to see what he says the speed was of that game, because it looked just so fast, and we were far away from the ice.
I would guess he's going to say, "Oh no problem, it was fine."
Well,
Yeah,
he's playing
that
with
was
Drew
nothing.
Doughty. I'm sure that wasn't a hard thing
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, well, that's different. He's like, that would be like Zuby looking at me when he's got some of them other guys. Zuby would look at me and go, "No, I got better options." He's probably looking at Drew going, "Oh, he's a slower, older guy just coming off an injury. I can make a better play and get it someplace else quicker."
Bloody, you mentioned a couple of times tonight as we were watching the game how Canada didn't seem to overly forecheck because they were playing such a really tight neutral zone against the U.S. And you didn't really like how the U.S. always handled that.
Well, the way I look at that is they respected what the U.S. team can do, and they had a lot of skilled players. And so what they did is they tried to keep things tight, and if they couldn't get in and forecheck, they would say, "You're going to have to go through 4 or 5 of us before you get to a quality scoring area at the other end of the rink." And early on in the game, I thought that U.S. kind of fell into that trap because they turned more pucks over. And when you watch Canada play, what they were doing, those pucks were going in deep, and they're going to put them in deep, and they're going to forecheck, and they're going to try to make sure that the U.S. would have to go 200 feet to get through them, whether they're putting the puck in or if they're in that defense mode. Because there were times in the picture frame when the U.S. they're behind their net and starting to come out, you don't even see one guy in the picture frame, and that's because they're all, I want to say just at the blue line or just inside the neutral zone there, and then they make you try to stretch and see things, but they really did a good job at clogging up the neutral, and because they don't want that U.S. team, and vice versa. You don't want any of these players going through the middle of the ice with speed. And we've seen it over and over with MacKinnon and McCarr and guys like that. I mean, it's a scary, thank God I've never had to face those guys, but I mean, to see those kind of guys, McDavid, coming at you with a full head of steam, it's one thing when it's 1-on-1 or even 1-on-2, but if you play it the right way, now they have to kind of go through 3 or 4 guys to at least get the offensive blue line.
Hey, Sam, I want to ask you a question about the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. I don't know. It was 15 years ago almost now. Do you remember that at all?
What was he, 7 at the time?
That's why I'm asking.
No, I remember it. Yeah, I was in high school.
What were your impressions of the U.S. team and the gold medal game against Canada from Vancouver in 2010?
It felt more lopsided than this did. I'm pretty sure it was 2-0 Canada, and U.S. had to score 2 to tie it up and force that overtime. And to me, it didn't feel like this game that felt 50-50 up for grabs. Both of these teams deserve it. And if there was a third game, like Lud said, it would be the same thing, 50-50 toss-up. That the 2010 one, just even the team in 2014, I know they didn't play each other in that game, but it just felt like a little more lopsided. And the goaltending was huge for the U.S. and really had to be the difference. I'm pretty sure Jamie Benn was that 2014 one that scored the winner.
It was in Sochi, yep.
Canada, against the U.S. And I think it was Ryan Miller that was the U.S. goalie. He had to be great to keep it 0-0 for so long. And I think that the biggest difference I see from those ones coming all the way up to this is that the U.S. has grown so much and become right there with Canada, whereas it was back then was like, we kind of looked at Sweden as, a couple things go right and they might do it. That's how we felt with the U.S. a lot in those tournaments. And now it feels like they're right there. And if they had won this game, nobody would say it was a fluke.
That's my point, is that Ryan Miller back in 2010 had to stand on his head for the U.S. to have a chance to beat Canada, and they had to get a little lucky. Now, they were in overtime, one shot wins it, but when they got to overtime in that game, it felt like it was only going to be one team that was winning it, and nobody was surprised when Sidney Crosby was the one that scored that goal. Tonight didn't feel that way to me. I don't know about you guys, but it felt like the U.S., when we got to overtime, they were the team on the front foot. It looked like Austin Matthews was going to win the game for them, as he had a couple grade A chances. This team, yes, they were a bit banged up. They were missing some guys, but I just felt that it's been 15 years, but this U.S. team now can go toe-to-toe with Canada. Again, they haven't knocked him off of the biggest stage. Yeah, they beat him in the first meeting of this tournament, but they lost the one that really matters. But yes, and I still think that if you looked at Canada's B team versus the US B team, it might still be a little different. I think the United States, from a talent level, is capable of putting a number one roster that can compete man for man with most of Canada, save for maybe a MacKinnon, McCarr, and McDavid, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a big deal.
Well,
Well,
I was
thought
going
that
to
was
actually.
interesting too.
No, go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead, Lutz. I was just going to say, I thought it was interesting that if you look back at that 15 years ago and tonight, the best player in the world beat the United States in overtime. It was Crosby at the time, and it's McDavid now. And that you just mentioned, that's the difference, right? It's this small. Well, it was those slight difference makers that ended up winning both of those games for Canada.
And so here's where I go with that. And I was the first one to say the United States and everything that they did promoting these games and everything on television and radio and all that kind of stuff, I thought was great. I mean, they did I even sent Billy Guerin, the general manager, a message 2 days ago about how everybody was involved in it. People that probably weren't even hockey fans. And I've even heard people talk about it, that they didn't watch a lot of hockey. Who's this guy? Who's that guy? But, you know, and I thought that they did a great job. And then tonight before the game, you know, they have, you know, the coaches and all the stuff from the movie and all this kind of stuff going on. But then there's that other side of me that wants to go, just be careful, because there was something put out there on social media, I think it was today, where it showed the events that the U.S. team has won, which was about the size of my thumb. And then there was the events that Canada had won, which was about the size of Owen's head. So I
don't know if you can see it on the screen, but this is actually
is that the stuff there?
This is from the NHL game notes from today. This is Canada, USA, NHL International Tournament history. And there's a lot of Canada winning the head-to-head. And the stats were, Luds, now counting tonight, Canada has won 10 of the 14 overall tournaments involving NHL players going back to the 1976 Canada Cup. 10 of 14.
So it's a double-edged kind of blade for me, because they did such a great job getting people that probably wouldn't traditionally watch this sport and this game and stuff like that. They got them involved. But then on the other side of the coin, it's like, just be careful. Don't poke the bear.
Yeah. Let's talk more about that in a minute here on the DLS, Dallas Stars, and Four Nations post-game show. So let's talk about being a diehard. Sam can show you where that QR code, if you're watching live or if you're listening to us later, you go to alldls.com, click on the diehard link. Why? Well, it's a great way to elevate your fandom of the DLS entire platform. We have 4 big shows: Cowboys, Rangers, Mavericks, and of course Stars, plus all the writing, all the access to merchandise and events. Guess what? We already sold out our first Dallas Stars watch party, which will be at Cosm over in the Colony in Grandscape, which is going to be amazing. End of March 26th, I believe. Stars at the Edmonton Oilers. I can't wait. We'll all be there. We've got some crazy diehards that already signed up. We sold out our allotment of tickets in about 90 minutes. And guess what? If you've been on the fence, if you've thought about, as he's using his Roku controller to show you where to go, I don't know what was going on there for a minute. If you have thought about being a diehard, but you have been on the fence, now's the perfect time, because we have a special spring training offer discounted for a limited time. This will not last, but we're talking about nearly half price. Not quite, but think about this. You get all the perks of being a diehard, including a free DLS t-shirt of your choice.
What the hell is that, a Reese's peanut butter
It looks
cup?
like a bunny. It's not Easter yet, but he's getting ready for it. Think about this. You can get the free t-shirt, and that covers almost your annual subscription for the first year. So it's a great opportunity to do it. Jeff Wilson, our great Rangers beat writer for DLS, is out in Surprise, Arizona right now, where, Luds, I believe the daily forecast is mid to upper 70s with lows in the low 50s, which is just about perfect. It's exactly why they do spring training in Arizona and Florida. And so while Jeff is out there covering the Rangers on the ground, you need to get in on the diehard action. You see all his Rangers coverage and, of course, everything else: Stars, Cowboys, Mavs, you name it. And in addition to that, we have a new drop for St. Patrick's Day coming up here in a couple of weeks. And that means you could get your DLLS St. Patty's Day shirt, They are ready to ship, I've been told, so you don't have to wait long for it. They are good to go. Get out now while you still have an opportunity. And there's Craig Ludwig. Apparently,
That's him.
Day drunk, according to John. All right. We have some super chats to get to. If you want to get any in, fire out at us now. And we have lots more to go through here as Canada beats the United States to take home the Four Nations face-off trophy.
Bing bong.
Let's do a bing bong or two. I Love Misty, 1985. A little Pavelski and Ludwig. Don't mind me. I'm just here for the ding. That's how you do it.
Done.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right. How about another one?
You could have picked another 16.
Bing bong.
Ooh.
It's a good question.
Is that Steve Ott?
T Farmer, a little Ottinger, and Harley. Harley has a taste of being a champion. Bring it home with you. They should have dressed Otter as a defenseman tonight. That would be an interesting move. Maybe a forward with the.
Realize the other 29 was Steve Ott, another Otter.
Well, I was thinking more of the.
I know that, but I'm just saying.
Was he always 29?
No, he was 30 the year after that.
Who?
And the year
Otter?
after that, he was 31.
Steve Otter was 30.
And then 3 years after
No,
that, he
he's
was
talking about
32.
he's talking about his age.
He's not
He's talking
catching
about
on,
his age.
Sam.
All the
He's
goalie
talking about
numbers.
his age.
Oh my God, Sam, you go ahead and explain it to him.
I don't know. He got it.
No, he's
He
talking
got
about
it.
his age. I get it. Wasn't he 8?
No,
He
I believe
he did
in
wear
his
an eight.
career here, he was
He-
29.
Was he always?
I
number
believe so. He was a rookie, and then he got traded.
Yeah.
We have one. We have a bobblehead. What's on the bobblehead right behind you?
Steve Ott
Middle shelf,
bobblehead.
fourth one down.
Well, I'm going to
Right in
he
the middle of
definitely
the
wore
shot
29
right now.
in Dallas for the most
Yeah,
part.
I
you're
don't
right.
have to look.
No,
I know what he's
right.
I know what
It
number
says,
he
it
is.
says 29 on it.
He's
Well,
right.
I
Good.
trust
He
you,
was-
Luds.
Okay.
I trust
He
your
was
recall,
9
believe it or not.
He was 9 in St. Louis.
Yeah, well, he couldn't be 9 here, could he now?
Yeah, it
No.
didn't work out.
Yeah, there's another player wearing number 9. Speaking of which, Jake Ottinger does not actually prefer the number 29. We heard about this as he joined Team USA because he's wearing number 30. That's the number he's always worn. But Ben Bishop was wearing number 30 when Otter got to Dallas. So what did he do? 29. But he did say he's never going to change it as long as he's a Dallas Star. He's going to stick with 29. So signed a big 8-year contract extension. Think he'll be here for a while.
I was going to say he's probably going to have that number till he retires.
Yeah, and that's okay. He likes it
that
now.
way.
So, all right, next
Bing
one.
bong.
Oh, Jordan, a little Madonna and 99 Cup here, not Steve Ott. I'm so excited about what this tournament has done for hockey. Everyone in my world has been talking about it. 2 more days until Stars hockey. Also, Pavelski. You pay for it, you get it. This is what your point was earlier, Luds. There was buzz around this tournament from casual sports fans, not just hockey fanatics. And especially because of the Canada-US rivalry and the timing of this, which was no NFL playoffs after the Super Bowl during the NBA All-Star weekend, which did not measure up well to this because let's face it, All-Star games, except for maybe baseball, really aren't that interesting. The one thing about baseball is that you can generally try hard without risking injury. And you get, I'll still remember watching Randy Johnson throw over John Kruk's head and Kruk turned his helmet backwards, or you get to see Shohei Ohtani throw against Aaron Judge or something like that. Although, yeah, I guess they would be in different leagues now. Anyway, I just think that this is the kind of thing that we've been lacking best on best with NHL players internationally for the last 10, 11 years. And I know we talk about injuries, and I know that some GMs and coaches and owners are not going to be happy with this mid-season like it is, but I think I've converted to this is the right time to do it, especially if you plan on going to the Olympics. You need to be prepared to how to deal with this, not just try to play a September tournament like they've done in the past.
Yeah, and that's why I'm curious. And again, I say it. I thought the United States did a great job of promoting this whole event, whatever market you were in. But I'm curious what Canada did. Did Canada go out like United States did, or did they just kind of go, well, this is what we do? I don't know how they would do any more than what the States did. But speaking of the States, don't you think we should chat about Charlie McAvoy a little bit here?
Would you like to?
Yeah, I'd like to know, what thoughts on that.
Go ahead, Sam. You want to start, or you want me to set it up?
You can set it up. I just think the whole thing is crazy, but why don't you run it down?
Okay, so for those of you that maybe weren't following along, McAvoy had a phenomenal game against Canada on Saturday in their second round robin game, and he was physical. He had a couple of massive hits against some of the biggest stars for the Canadians, and he was exceptional. Look, he's a good player, but he was even more physical than I remember in his game.
I don't think Connor McDavid has been hit consistently by anybody since he's been in the league like he had by McAvoy.
Right.
And if that, to me, that would have
horizontal.
made a difference. That if Charlie McAvoy was healthy and could have played again, but then again, we didn't really notice McDavid until he scored that goal. Maybe that wouldn't have happened tonight.
Maybe.
But regardless.
But Sanderson got to play, and he scored a goal, and he was very good. So anyway, McAvoy suffered a shoulder injury. Now, it's unclear, at least from the timeline that I read, whether he was coming into the tournament hurt and exacerbated, or he suffered an injury. The drama unfolded as we found out, and the Boston Bruins, McAvoy's NHL club, first sent out a message. They released a statement saying that he had gone to the hospital, then that he was in stable condition, blah, blah, blah. Then their medical team and their team doctor released a statement later, I don't know if it was a day or two later, saying that he suffered a pretty severe AC joint injury, which was worse than originally thought. And I think maybe the timeline was he heard it against Finland and then got treatment for the first USA-Canada game. And even though he played really well in that game, he had a reaction to it. They said he suffered a shoulder infection. So not only did he suffer an AC joint injury, but then whatever treatment they had, and Letty, you seem to think that you read that it was a PRP kind of
I thought I heard somebody
treatment?
talking about it. Yeah.
Something like that, which is where they take and again, I'm going to overly simplify this, where they actually withdraw your blood from your arm, they spin it, they do some things to increase, I think, the white blood cell count or platelets or something like that. Again, don't hold me to this. And then they inject it in the injury site to help.
What does your wife do for a living?
Yeah, she's a nurse practitioner, but
You would think
she
you would
would
know
be able
more.
to explain this way better than me. So,
A monkey could.
no, thank you.
Okay.
Not this monkey, though.
No, not me. That's why I'm staying out of it.
And so anyway, he suffered a shoulder infection. The Bruins are claiming because of this treatment. And so he had to go through a course of, I think it was IV antibiotics, debridement or whatever it's called. Again, not a medical expert, where they had to basically go in and clean out the infection. And I don't know if you guys saw the video that the Team USA posted, but he actually was in the dressing room tonight pregame announcing the starting lineup for Team USA. He had the shoulder sling on his right shoulder, and it sounds like he's going to be out of the lineup for a while. But Sam, the real drama felt like it was the Boston medical staff chirping the Team USA medical staff, which was also happens to be the Minnesota Wild doctors.
Yeah, it's all. That's why I said crazy is a good way to say it, because it's just weird. Like I highly doubt there was ignorance on anyone's side. This is a high level tournament. These guys were brought there to do that job at the high level. There's a reason they're there, but it's not a good look on you, no matter what. From maybe not realizing the extent of the injury, number one, to whatever the treatment was that went wrong. I mean, if you watch the video of, I think it was Joel Armia, cross-checks him from behind in that Finland game, and he goes just straight shoulder right into the post, and the post doesn't budge at all, and his arm kind of bends around it. So it was a brutal play, but it's just not a good look, right? You don't want it's the classic, it maybe wasn't necessarily their fault, but you don't want it to happen, especially when it's not your players, right? It's not this isn't a Boston Bruins game where, that's the staff they're working with, they're comfortable with. This is a staff that is just probably doing everything they can to not make any mistakes or have any issues, because these are a bunch of players that are going to go back to their NHL teams and compete with them for a Stanley Cup later in the season.
Let's pause briefly here to say thank you to everyone who joined in our television platforms tonight. Please make sure to like and subscribe here on the pod and check out alldlls.com. Okay, Luddy, I'm going to bring up soccer again, but only for this regard, because it happens a lot in international soccer. Because throughout the course of a season in soccer, European, domestic, in the U.S., wherever, where they have windows for international play, where you go to get called up to play for the national team, and you either play, some sort of friendlies, or there's a tournament, a World Cup, whatever. And there's always issues between club and country when it comes to, is this player medically fit? Is he capable of playing? How is he being treated? If he's going to the national team, does he get overextended, and then we're getting a player that's now worn out or injured or both coming back to his club team? This is one of the drawbacks of having international play during a season, but I think we're all clamoring for more of this because it's such compelling stuff, and it brings in the non-traditional hockey fans, just the casual sports fans, a lot more.
Yeah, 2 games into this, I just wondered how the owners feel.
Yeah.
Again, I say this a lot about all the events, the Olympics, the All-Star games, all these kind of things, and it's always the best players that are in them, rightfully so, and you're wearing your best players down, and you want them to be as healthy as they possibly can at the end of 82 games, and you're throwing all these other things in there and all these events. I mean, you look at the breaks and the All-Star breaks and all that kind of stuff, and players are getting on a plane and they're going to Cabo, they're going to Hawaii, and where Sean is, and and they're getting to relax for 4 or 5 days or whatever it may be, and then these guys are going back and they're playing another game. And an event like this, the competitive juices are there, and so you can see they're all going out, and there's injuries that are being taken. So at some point, I don't know. I mean, at some point, you want your best players on your respective teams to be well rested heading into the playoffs, and you've got a big grind coming up. The first one to 16 out of 28 is going to win, and you kind of want your guys to be healthy at that time of the year.
John, do we have any more super chats before we get to our man of the match and other things?
We have 2 more super chats.
That's
Bing
what I
bong.
thought. All right, next one. Prime Crusader with a little Heiskanen and Granlund. Stars win cup. Jets out early. Otter starts the Olympics? ? I mean,
like the choppy sentences.
Do you think, Sam, that Connor Hellebuyck had any negatives about this game?
No, I don't think so at all. I think the Bennett goal, I don't think is his type of goal. Yeah, it's a great picture of it. I just think that's one where Hellebuyck's usually standing tall and makes that save pretty easily. He drops low and clearly reads that wrong. He's looking straight down, dropping down, putting his stick through his legs. He must have expected a Jake Gensel type 5-hole shot, but other than that, and that's really nitpicking. I'm picking on him because he's the Vezina Trophy winner. I'm not picking on him because that's a average save that needs to be made. It's just a save Connor Hellebuyck usually makes. But he was great when he needed to be, and can't blame him on the last goal.
Luds, in the first period, we had some collaborative notes about the play, and after the MacKinnon goal where Harley set it up and it went through a screen, Hellebuyck stopped Seth Jarvis from a really good chance. You had the note of he had 3 saves in a row using his length and big pads to make a couple of in-tight saves. Then he saved Sam Bennett. You said Bennett tried to pull the puck out and then
tried to walk off the goal line and stuff it. Yeah.
So he was really, really good. But that goal, the Bennett goal, was the one that tied it at 2.
That's why you
it's not great.
But that's why you look at that goal, and then you look at the 2 or 3 saves that the guy at the other end of the rink made in the third period. And so, or was it in overtime?
It was overtime.
It was at overtime.
Well, Binnington stopped Gensel. Remember that they had that bad change, and Gensel came in. McCarr came late.
Who had that bad change?
Who came off for McCarr?
It was a defenseman.
It was.
Who's coaching the defenseman in this tournament for Canada?
I believe somebody from the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, right.
Pete DeBoer, right?
Boy.
No, not Steve.
No,
Spott.
not Steve Spott. It's the head coach. Not that easy back there, Pete.
They had a couple of wonky changes that were close to too many men on the ice.
Well, I think in these events that happens, right? I mean, you got guys that aren't used to playing with each other, and you're into this kind of game, and everybody's glued to what's going on the ice. And sometimes if your coach isn't tapping you on the shoulder and making sure that you hear, those kind of things happen. And again, it's a game of that much, we've seen that. So I'm
not down on Hellebuyck. However, because he hasn't won the big one yet.
Yeah,
right? I think that's why I think
does that
as
follow
much as
him
we
now?
don't, as much as we follow him. He's got a lot of things that follow him. I mean, he doesn't. He's got that's the only knock about Hellebuyck is that he hasn't gotten his team, to where they expect to go, and he knows that. But I mean, that's good news for the other teams that are going to be playing them in the playoffs if that is the case, because there's going to be some clubs that, if he continues to play this way, I mean, obviously he is regardless of this during the NHL regular season, he's the best goalie on the planet for sure. But he has to prove it in the playoffs, and that's what the Winnipeg crowd is hoping that he can do. But that's why I asked Sean that question. I mean, does he go home tonight and at some point go, Jesus, I should have had this one or I should have had that one, and I don't want because you hear the talk, he hears the talk that you haven't been that great in the playoffs, and this has happened and that has happened, and so like he's even said something. I heard him talking another month earlier than all this stuff, and he just said, I'm here to win the big one. I'm here. This is what I have to do. Yes, I've proven I'm this, and this, but until you win that. And so it's there, and goalies are some of the mentally tough people on the planet, and some of them are mental midgets. You know what I mean? It just depends on, and the ones that are the mentally tough ones are the ones that win the championships.
Think about this, Sam. In overtime, Binnington, who as a Dallas Stars, following, used to work for the team, now covering for DLS, he's been the villain a lot, right? For Stars and for Boston Bruin fans. Sorry, John. He stopped Austin Matthews point blank on a nice pass out from the corner from Gensel. He then denied Gensel on a partial breakaway, that was the other way around. Gensel was back-checking Marchand. He made 2 massive saves, one on Matthews, and then the rebound from the angle on Brady Tkachuk with that glove. And then he denied on the next face-off, Matthews took the puck, walked to the slot. It took a deflection, and that literally saved the tournament for Canada in those 4 or 5 saves.
What's crazy is when we talked about this tournament, I kept saying, and plenty of people, not just me, obviously, pointed out the goaltending and thought that was going to be the difference. And as crazy as it is, as picky as it is, that Sam Bennett goal is what we're talking about when we say that. That save Hellebuyck, should have made on that play is what makes that game 2-1, 3-1 U.S. wins. And that's the difference. It's that small. That's all it takes. And it's the knocks on Binnington over and over again were that in these types of games, and we saw it on Saturday in the first matchup, in these big, huge winner-take-all games, one soft or kind of soft or unexpected, whatever you want to call it, goal is the difference 90% of the time. And that's exactly what it was. Hellebuyck got beat on one he should normally make, and Binnington didn't.
This morning I was listening to a goalie coach, and he's very, very good. And I wish you'd probably, who I'm thinking of, the goalie coach that comes on the NHL Network and things like that at times.
Which one? Do you remember which team?
No, it's not I think
or former goalie coach.
Former, I believe. But anyway, he was talking.
I have a few in my mind.
Well, yeah, but what he was talking about the most this morning was about what the players can do now, and they have all these skills coaches, right? And Robo's got one, and they all have. But it's how what they show you with their stick, and it was about the Gensel goal, not tonight, obviously, the last goal where he showed 5-hole, and it wasn't there, and I think that's why he said Binnington got beat on it, but that may be another example of that goal right there, that the Bennett goal that he may have showed, because when you see Hellebuyck kind of going down like this, and from here again, it's about perspective.
He's just reading.
Look at how much space is open short side, and short side high there, and it looks like he's covering everything down low. And he was just talking about how they can manipulate their stick and make it look like they're going a certain place, and then with a flick of a wrist they go to a different spot. That's the first thing I thought of when I see that space up there, is what that conversation was about here.
Well, that's what Robo does with those shootout moves.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But Robo kind of lets them. He's got the poise and patience to let the goaltender make the first move, right? So it is.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's because again, I talk about Hellebuyck because you watch him play and he's so calm and so big, and it doesn't look like he's working hard, but he always makes those saves. And then there's that one there that goes in. But sometimes, we say it a lot, sometimes you just have to give the shooter credit.
Yeah. Sam, what'd you think about only one penalty being called tonight in the championship game?
I loved the fact that there were no penalties in this whole tournament. I thought it was awesome. I didn't really notice it until maybe the 3rd or 4th game. And then I was like, wait a minute. We hear so much about these lethal power plays, and Canada, I think, had 4 power plays the entire tournament, which is crazy. US had, I think, even less. So I like the letting them
the
play
US
a little
had
bit.
8.
Oh, they did. Okay, they had a bunch in that other game. That's right.
Canada was
but I
2
think
for 4 in the turn, or sorry, 1 for 4.
Yeah,
They didn't score
1
on
for
top
4.
play tonight.
No,
1 for
but
4.
if you really looked close, once I noticed that they were not calling much, you could see plenty of it. You saw some of the 2000s Luds era, the 90s, where the guys are going to the net and they are just grabbing onto them. They're full bear hug and they're not calling it. And part of me loves that a little bit. I think it should be more consistent. I hate that there's so many calls. However, my question back to you guys is, would you call that too many men situation in overtime on Canada?
We kind of talked about that. I don't think it was. The guys nobody from that was coming on or off the bench touched the puck, and it was right near the bench. And again, at that time of the game, I think if they didn't call anything in the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game, where I thought there could have been a couple penalties either way, I said they're going to let these guys decide who wins this game. I thought they were going to find a way to give each team a power play, and if it was something, blatant, they
Like
would give them
automatic,
another.
puck
Well,
over the
and
glass,
and,
they
and
have
in the last 3-4 minutes of the game, we felt there was going to be something called, but at that point, it's tied 2-2. They're just going to go, no, we're not going to decide this way.
See, I always, and I've said this before, I can't stand when referees change their standards during a game. If you want to call loose,
and
let
that's
it go,
all players really care about.
They just want it the
you get
same.
5-10 minutes into a hockey game and you go, okay, so that's how we're going to play.
Right.
And
But don't change it because it's
you
the third
say
period.
that, and you go up to them and you say, so we're going to let this go.
Yep.
And that's fine, let it go,
Now
but
you
you're
know.
letting it go for both ways,
Right.
and they have no other reason but to say, yeah, that's what we're going to try to do.
I thought Canada was very sloppy with a couple of changes tonight. I didn't think that they had to make a call there. The one thing that bothered me was the U.S. got called for icing because of it, because the two players that were caught in that change for Canada avoided playing the puck, so it's not a penalty. They actually have to make a play on it for it to be called. If it just hits them, they're just in the way, except that it then should have negated the icing because they didn't play the puck because they didn't want a penalty. So then the linesman goes, oh, well, it didn't get touched. So it's a minuscule kind of detail. But honestly, I'm fine with them not calling a lot. But Sam, the one thing I don't want it to be, well, it's 5 minutes ago in the third of a final, we can't call. If you're going to call it in the first 5 minutes of the game, regular season playoffs, international tournament, it's got to be the same standard. That's all I want. It doesn't have to be ticky-tack. It just has to be consistent.
100%. And they had to call that penalty on Trocheck. That's clear as day tripping penalty, and a stupid one.
And honestly,
makes it even more obvious.
Not only did the U.S. do well killing that penalty, Eichel made an unbelievable play without a stick.
Yep, good footwork there. He must have been a soccer player.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Except he didn't dive there. I thought maybe he broke his toe on that one.
Do we have any more super chats before we get to man of the match, John?
Yeah, there's one more.
There's one for
Bing bong.
$978.
Not quite. We have $5 Canadian.
Canadian.
You want to take a shot at pronouncing that, Sam?
Can we decline it? Oh man. No.
I'm gonna go. I don't speak Korean, but I'm gonna say so sang nim, and I believe that's Korean for teacher. So there you have it. And then $5 Canadian would be Trevor Daley.
Well, I was going to say it's about $3.25
There you
US. That's what I was going to
So
say.
it'd be a Ludwig then. As an out-of-place Canadian here, the one thing that was abundantly clear is that the big winners of this tournament were the fans. Great hockey. Totally.
Well said.
And the part that bothers me about this is why we were shortchanged the fans the last 10 years of not doing it since the 2014 Sochi Olympics.
One thing I will say that I did hear something, a fan called in to the radio station and said that they felt that the broadcasters needed to do a better job when talking about players because there were a lot of new people that were watching the sport. And when they're talking about Brady Tkachuk, they don't know what team he plays for. They wanted them to say Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators or Matthew Florida, things like that. So that tells you that when there's people calling in and saying that they do have a lot of new people to the sport, whether they continue to watch it or not. But I mean, that's probably what this whole event was about, especially for the States, putting it on the map for the broader population.
So there you have it. Man of the match for you?
On the saves and things like that, I got to go with Binnington.
Sam?
I was going to say the same thing, but I'm actually going to say Jacob Slavin for the U.S.
That's a good choice.
I think that this game might be over without him making a couple.
By the way, who was the MVP? Who was the MVP? Or I didn't see any of that.
MacKinnon. MacKinnon was man of the tournament or whatever they called it. Player of the
I was
tournament.
down here getting ready. By the way, that side.
Yeah,
you were hard at work. You know what's funny? I almost picked Austin Matthews because he had 2 primary assists, and I don't know if he was all that great offensively for much of the game, but he was so good defensively. And then all of a sudden he came alive in overtime.
Yeah, but all of a sudden he left so-and-so open in the slot too.
Yeah, and then he was the one to blame on the Connor McDavid winner. Yeah, boy, I didn't think that any one player for Canada really, other than maybe Jordan Binnington. I hate picking Jordan Binnington, but I think,
go with Harley.
Yeah, well, that's just sort of the homer and the Dallas Stars of us. I think Binnington won him this game, especially in overtime. Yep. So I'd have to go that. We have a show tomorrow, but before we do, Luds, I had a quote from pregame from John Cooper, your friend and the coach of Canada, who, when asked about the stakes of this game, said, "For me, we're here to celebrate a game. If after this game, all the little girls out there or boys out there that are inspired by the players that play this game and how they compete, if after watching tonight go and become hockey players, that's the real win, not who wins on the ice." And that's not even talking about getting hockey fans. It's about inspiring a new generation of hockey players. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
I don't think I should even comment on that. I think you said it perfectly. Or John said it. John said it perfectly. That would be good night, folks.
Show tomorrow.
Crushing beers in the locker room here, eh?
Are they?
Yeah.
Well,
not us, boys.
We're taking a look right now at the upcoming schedule for a couple of things. We have a DLS Stars podcast tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time. Sam will be live from New Jersey. He's about to be on site for 2 games this weekend. Stars are back in action on Saturday and Sunday. And Sam will be in New Jersey, and then he'll be over on the island for a little UBS Arena with the Islanders and the Stars. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about Noah Dobson a little bit more, Brock Nelson. And there's GM Ben. Why is this show still on? We're trying to get the day off.
Get the day off. It's today here. Does that count? If we go 6 more minutes and then Owen does his ad reads, then it counts.
Thank you very much for joining us and staying at late. According to our producer, we've had quite a few views on this stream with people cycling in and out since we went live. Over 1,100 already and counting. How about that?
Wow.
So, Four Nations, it captivated. We'll be on the show tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Time. Join us for Craig Ludwig, Sam Nestler, John Anderson, and a surprise cameo from Hawaii Sean. I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon right here on DLS.
I need a Miller Lite. I need a Miller Lite.
We all silly like the mayor.